Welcome to All Things Greater Burlington, where you will hear from the movers, shakers, and changemakers that are moving Greater Burlington forward. Here is your host, Stephen Brody.
Welcome to All Things Greater Burlington. Cray Law PLC is committed to providing clients with the highest quality legal advice at a reasonable price. Located in Burlington, Iowa, they practice throughout southeastern Iowa, west central Illinois, and parts of Missouri. Founded in 1924, Cray Law has adapted and changed to continually serve the evolving legal needs of the community. Born, raised, and educated in Iowa and Illinois, Cray's lawyers are dedicated to serve in our community. Besides legal work, they are proud to contribute to the local community by volunteering their time with various nonprofit, municipal, charitable, religious, and recreational organizations and events. And it's a pleasure to have them here today as I would say, one of the legacy businesses here in the greater Burlington area. We are pleased to have Mitch Taylor, senior partner, as well as Scott Cray, who is of the great lineage of the Cray family. And so, gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
First of all, as I said, congratulations. You're coming up on 100 years. That is a tremendous accomplishment and achievement for any business to make it 100 years. And I thought it was important to celebrate that and to get to know you better. So congratulations. And Scott, what do you attribute to that for a law firm to be around for 100 years?
Well, I think part of it, at least in my family, the lawyers tend to work until they're in their 80s. My grandfather started practicing law in 1924, and he didn't retire until 1982.
No kidding.
And then my dad started in 1957, and he retired in 2011. So, there's no early retirement among the lawyers in my family.
Yeah, no kidding. And I know, Scott, you said offline that you've decided to go in another direction and not practice law. Was law something that was important in the Cray family?
Oh, absolutely. We were always, discussing the law, and my mom certainly hoped that I would be the third generation in the family to go to law school and practice law either at the firm or someplace else. But I went the business route and started a couple of businesses along the way, and never looked back. But my sister picked that up, and she went to law school, so she was the third generation Cray to not only go to law school, but to graduate from the University of Iowa Law School.
Yes. And Mitch, how long have you been associated with the firm?
Thank you. So I started in February of 1992. So you can do the math. It's about 31 years, in the 30 years range. I was born and raised in Burlington.
Yeah.
Pardon me, I wasn't born here. My parents moved here when I was about 3 or 4 years old. Went to high school, believe it or not, with Scott's sister, the third generation Cray.
Yeah.
But back in those days, the Burlington Community School District, we had a class size 500 to 600, so we didn't know everybody. Found myself then going to undergrad and law school, wanted to come home, interviewed with Scott's dad. He offered me a job, and I started right away, and I never left.
So this is the one and only law firm that you've been at then?
So yes, as a licensed lawyer. Now I clerked with the Nyemaster firm in Des Moines.
Okay.
And Judge Woolley in the federal court for a semester and a half. But yeah, this is my job, and I intend to do it as long as my body will allow me, and try to be there for 50 years as well.
It sounds like that must be in the water over at the office, that you have folks that are there for a long time.
Right. We drink water out of the bottle over there, but somehow it's getting in there, yes.
Scott, is there, or for either one, we'll start with you, Scott. Was there, as far as you know, lineage-wise, was there a specialty that your family wanted to practice, that they just want to be attorneys, or was there a certain area of law that they
I
in?
used to discuss that with Dad, because I always asked him, you watch Perry Mason, right? There's all these criminal trials on TV, that you can watch. I said, why don't you do any criminal work? And he didn't have any interest in doing criminal work. He did, family law, business law, real estate law. And I think that's what most of the partners over the years at the firm have focused on. There's one case, that Mitch and I were looking through the history here, where my grandfather, Glenn, was appointed by the court to defend a murderer, and this must have been back in like the 1930s, and he didn't really want it.
Yeah.
And the guy was absolutely guilty. He shot somebody at the toll booth on the bridge.
Oh wow.
And there were witnesses, and he turned himself in, and my grandfather was required to take that case on and provide the best defense possible. And in some of the family history I've been looking through here, he knew that the particular judge at that time wasn't always the sharpest on the law, believe it or not.
Well, I think so. That could be said of some today, right?
That statement's not endorsed by Cray Law Firm presently.
And so my grandfather kind of invented a defense that wasn't really in the Iowa law, and he called it justifiable homicide because the shooter had shot another man who was having an affair with his wife.
Okay.
And again, this was a long time ago, back in presumably the 1930s, and
we hear that term today.
we do hear that term.
Is
today.
he laying claim to?
I don't think so. I think maybe he was the first one to use it around here.
Okay.
But anyway, I guess it was a bench trial, and the judge ruled in his favor, and people in town were very upset and mad at my grandfather, and he was like saying, I had to take it. I just provided the best defense possible. But then the Supreme Court stepped in, I think, and kind of overruled that whole thing. And, and set it right. But
yeah.
Scott, there was rioting at the house, really.
That's what it said. Yeah, they said that they had a mob of people at my grandfather's house protesting, and the police had to come and disperse them.
And I'm sorry to say that is probably a story that almost all the lawyers at Cray Law have had an opportunity to have their time in that barrel.
They could be nominated for Man of the Year then.
No, not necessarily endeared by mankind, the result of our professional responsibilities.
Was there, in looking at the history, is there a reason for getting into the law profession? I know a lot of people will have a different story. Either it was family, or maybe they just said, I want to help people. I want to represent people and right wrongs and things like that. Did that ever come up in conversation?
I'm sure for my dad, his father was so respected. I'm sure for my dad, the family connection was a lot of it. I don't really know what pushed my grandfather to go into law. He had, he grew up in Marshalltown, and I guess had an offer and a scholarship to attend school out east at a prestigious school. I've heard Harvard. I can't document that for you, but again, in the family history, my grandfather's father, so my great-grandfather, just disappeared one day, walked away from his wife and his 3 kids, and so my grandfather had to punt the idea of going out east, and he had to start supporting the family. So he came to Iowa City and attended the University of Iowa. His mom was able to give him $10 and a new suit, and he had to put himself to work while he was in school and send some money home. And I think you could do that today with the cost of living, but
not with $10.
No, he made it work and got through both undergrad and law school in 5 years and graduated in 24. Wow. And the day he graduated from law school, his father just mysteriously reappeared at home after 15 years.
No kidding. And
I'm
on the edge of my seat.
My great grandmother invited him in for lunch. Like nothing had happened.
Wow,
crazy when you think about it.
Okay,
but so my grandfather, I never heard him say anything about it. But again, it's kind of in some of the family history here. He he was really standoffish with his father for the rest of his father's life. He was just so upset with him for abandoning the family and making Glenn at his young age kind of take charge of the finances for the family.
Yeah, sure.
So the thought process is that first generational lawyers usually get into the practice of law because of something that's happened in their life. And second generational lawyers often become lawyers because that's what they know. They were raised in it. So
right.
I had not heard that about Glenn. So it would sound to me like he probably got into the law to help people that were similarly situated or in an effort to try to compensate for something that had happened in the past, good, bad, or indifferent. So doesn't surprise me a bit.
How about you, Mitch? How about your story?
So I'm a first generational lawyer.
Yeah.
And I very much went to law school, not only because I didn't want to get a job after undergrad, but because I wanted to help people and because of things that happened in my childhood. My parents got a divorce and I didn't understand that. I was pretty young. And I wanted to help people. Ideally, I wanted to come back home and at least initially, I thought I'd practice in Montrose, Iowa, where I could drive my John boat and take my dog to work with me every day. So I didn't have necessarily, aspirations of highbrow law or silk stocking clients, but the firm certainly introduced me to that in a hurry.
Yeah.
Because that's a great segue to the firm's history, and I want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Couple things. Both Glenn and John practiced for 50 years, 100 years combined.
Unbelievable.
There were some of those multiples on that. But both Glenn and John are prior presidents of the Burlington Chamber of Commerce.
Oh.
If those dates, Scott, do you have those handy? Or
I do not.
Let's get those in there because I think that's important. Glenn was the president in 37 and 39.
Wow.
Okay.
Scott's grandfather.
Yeah.
Where in the middle there, between Glenn serving and John serving as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, Carl Reapy was, and they had practiced with Carl for a few years.
Yeah.
And then in 1980 through 81, Scott's dad, John Cray, was the president of the Chamber. And this very building that we're in, the old Mercy building, it's a nice segue because I'm so proud to be part of this. I call it my Crayology class. This building obviously was part of the hospital at one time.
Yeah.
The Cray Law Firm did the regime and were hired by the developer to do that through Scott's dad, John. But more importantly, not only does the family have a footprint with the chamber, but also with the IAAAP and the Iowa Army Ammunitions Plant, how it became and ended up being here.
Oh, really?
And a real strong past with the hospital as well.
Yeah.
So those are a couple things we want to brag about, those that came before us at some time during this.
No, and
either Scott or I can do it.
Right. And Scott, you said that you were born here.
I was born in this building, yes.
Yes. Yeah. So you have a definite affinity to this location.
Wish I could say I remember it, but
it would be interesting to know how many people remember being born.
Yeah.
One of the kind of funny stories that I remember my grandfather telling me and my sister and my cousins was what it was like to practice law during the Depression. And,
yes.
A lot of clients needed legal work done still, but a lot of them did not have really a lot of money to pay for legal work. So things got a little creative back then. And, some people just owed money for a while until they could get it paid off. But my grandfather said he had one client who was a farmer, and the client was cash poor and was not able to pay a bill, but he did pay my grandfather with chickens during the Depression.
Sure.
And so my grandfather was able to bring a chicken home and feed his wife and 3 kids. And that's kind of what it took during the Depression.
I would imagine that's not unfamiliar, that's happened a lot, that there would be some barter. We don't have the money per se, but would you accept this?
Yes.
And obviously there was a lot of understanding on his part to take that and understand those circumstances.
Yeah, that's right, and yeah, I'm sure again it was fairly common in those days. But yeah, can you imagine, working for a few hours and here's your chicken?
Yeah, right.
I think it became so common that the court has, at least through my career, prohibited us from doing that. That it became so common. Yeah.
Is there a niche that has been carved with Cray Law that you could say maybe separates you from other law firms, from other agencies in the area?
Absolutely. Presently, we have a very broad-based general practice. We, the lawyers at Cray Law Firm, can do virtually about every area of the law. We specialize really in very little. I like to quote, this would be Abe Lincoln. We have the privilege of a practice that's, what would he call it? The scramble of the general practice, the master, jack of all, master of very little.
Yes.
Some of that. But we do have some high specialties that other firms don't. And of course, our heritage. The Cray Law Firm was deeply involved in the hospital. Not so much presently. Scott's dad, John, and his grandfather, Glenn, both served on the board of directors. I know Glenn was the president of the hospital.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure John didn't serve a term.
I'm not sure
I know he was on the board.
Yes.
And that was during the times when the hospital was downtown here. I don't know, you may not remember it, but this is what the building we're in was part of the hospital.
Yeah.
And then there was an older hospital down the hill, and then the Burlington Medical Center here in the middle. And that was during the time when John and Glenn were addressing and helping the hospital grow.
Yeah.
So we're very excited about that. And we've traditionally done work for them and enjoy it. I would suspect that if we looked far enough back, John was involved in the hospitals moving out to the West Burlington.
Well, and I wanted to touch upon that because, as I said in the intro, you've contributed a lot to the local community by volunteering your time with various nonprofit and municipal, charitable, religious, and recreational organizations and events. Scott, where does that stem from? The drive and the necessity to do that, to want to be connected and be a part of the community?
Boy, that's a great question. It just always was the way it was when I was growing up. I mean, Dad was involved in so many things, and there were so many evenings he had to, was either not home for dinner because of some meeting, or would leave after dinner to go to a meeting of this organization or that organization. So yeah, I mean, he was very committed to to a lot of different community organizations and into the church, and he was he was very busy. He again, when I was a child, he worked basically 5.5 days a week. It's pretty much Saturdays. I don't know if you guys still do this, but
we do.
Saturdays. I mean, every morning he would go into the office around 7:30 or 8, and usually come home around 12 or 1, and then be available in the afternoon for family activities. But I always wonder, why are you working Saturday, Dad? Most people don't do that. And, but the attorneys do.
The practice of law is very much a lifestyle. Very much a lifestyle.
Mitch, as senior partner, I'll ask the question that I ask all of my guests. Is there such a thing as a typical day at the office? I mean, I know you talked about jack of all trades, master of none or few, but does it change by day to day, or is there a certain routine that you have when you're there?
So I never really thought of that. It's when you've done it after a few years, it becomes very natural. Yeah. And as a younger lawyer, I would oftentimes worry about what was coming up tomorrow and so forth and stew about it. Now I will just do it. Okay. Yeah. So that's helpful. And a lot of that's got to do with relationships in the office and so forth. You rely upon your partners, your associate, your staff, and we've always been able to do that. I want to say one thing, like, for example, my secretary has been my secretary my entire practice.
Wow.
And Scott's dad hired her 6 months into it when I started practicing because he got tired of me asking his secretary to do something. Yeah. So that's how I got a secretary. But Yeah, it seems like it's routine, but there's always something new, some new story.
Yeah.
And I do get a kick out of when I hear something new. I usually tell them I've never heard that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you talk about just the state of the legal profession right now? Because, attorneys have been the butt of jokes for decades.
I've not heard that.
Really?
No.
Well, I'm going to let you know that's kind of been going on for a while.
Right.
And so, good, bad, indifferent, attorneys oftentimes get a bad rap
Right.
on things. You've been doing this for 30 some years now, and that is fantastic. So talk about the profession, and since you've been in it for so long, obviously you love what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you answer those attacks, those criticisms about the legal profession?
Well, I've heard some of those lawyer jokes too, and not all of them were told by John Cray to me. Okay, so you got to understand when the community is laughing at lawyers about the jokes that they create, you understand we are just taking notes and reusing those against the engineers or the chamber employees and so forth. We just changed the profession, right? So you have to kind of roll with them and not take it too serious, because at the end of the day, those people that are telling those lawyer jokes, when they need you, you'll be the one they come to.
Right.
And here's the reason why. Because they felt comfortable enough to, jump on your profession.
Yeah.
That when they need help, they'll go to somebody they feel like they can talk to. And that's been a strength of our practice, and I learned from John Cray, Scott's dad. Treat people the way they need to be treated, like you would like to be treated, keeping into understanding, this is not a toy we're playing with, it's expensive, and get to the point, and then they make the decision and you run with it. So I enjoy it. I want to try to have 50 plus years myself.
Yeah, and in order to do that, obviously there is that belief, and that strong belief, that it is an honorable profession, that it is an honorable work that you are doing.
And there's some really cool, very qualified lawyers in town. Mm-hmm. It's amazing some of the level of expertise the lawyers have, and I don't mean just at Cray Law. Our community, we have some real good, strong lawyers here.
Oh, absolutely.
And obviously in our firm, with Glenn and John and the Crays and the folks that they practice with, our firm has always been a firm where the academics land. I believe John graduated high distinctions.
High distinction, yeah.
Glenn as well. Presently, Jim Miller's in our office. He was high or highest distinctions, and everybody after that's been that way.
Yeah.
And probably wouldn't get hired if we weren't. Mm-hmm. So when you come with that kind of background, you're ready to go.
Yeah. For those that are interested in practicing law in Iowa, what's the process now? In order, obviously, you go to law school and you graduate, but then what's the bar exam like here?
So the bar exam is entirely different than when I took it in 1992. It was essay, all writing in handbooks, or
Yep.
blue books is what they called them
Yep.
at the time.
Yep.
Now it's multiple choice, which seems to cheapen it, but frankly, I think it makes it harder because there's a lot of baffling that can be done in that blue book of the rhetoric, so forth.
Yeah.
So it's a multiple choice test now. There's an ethics component. The bar exam, as I understand, is still 2.5 days.
Okay.
When I took the bar in 92, you took the bar Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning, and they told you if you passed Thursday at 5, and you were sworn in Friday morning.
You found out that fast?
Right. I'll give you an example of what happened. I took the bar. I was living in Des Moines and had to take the bar exam in Iowa City. I went to Iowa City Sunday night. I took the bar exam Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon. I was done, and I didn't have a car. I didn't have a way back to Des Moines. I figured I'd figured it out. I went to undergrad in Iowa, ran into one of my buddies at a library where I was studying, and I got a ride back. So I get home, roughly midnight on Wednesday. I wake up, and by 3 o'clock on Thursday at the law school are the law exam numbers of the people that failed.
Okay.
And then I had to beat feet back to Iowa City to get sworn in. And of course, his dad made me start on Monday. I started work that following Monday.
That's incredible.
Incredible.
It's actually I found Glenn kind of did the same thing.
Yeah.
Glenn was married on May 31st, and he started practicing 3 days later.
Yep.
Wow. Is it that fast still now in Iowa? Okay.
No, and that was how it got me started there. It's months. I'm thinking they take it in January and they find out late summer.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we were talking off air. I took the bar exam in California in 94. And like you said, it was essay, it was multiple choice, and you didn't find out the results for a few months.
Yeah,
after
we were very
that.
fortunate.
It was offered twice a year. Is it same here?
It is.
So it was offered twice a year, and the way that you would know if you passed or didn't pass, I won't say fail, pass or didn't pass, was the size of the envelope that you got in the mail.
Oh, that's interesting.
If you got a thin envelope, you passed.
Really?
If you got a thick envelope in the mail, that was not a good sign.
Okay.
And that is why I am not practicing law today, is because I got a thick envelope.
Well, there's always a chance to try again to get the thin envelope.
There you go.
Yeah, so I think that it's been a great ride for me, and I know my partner presently, Ryan Gerling, feels the same, and our associate, Kyler Masner. Incidentally, we're all from Southeast Iowa, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
We all know the lay of the land. We know where Sportsman Club's at. We know the history of the IAAAP, which I've got to talk about when you get a moment.
Why don't we talk about the IAAAP?
Well,
let's talk about that.
You're familiar with the plant.
Yes.
What most people don't realize is it's 19,000 acres.
Yes, it is huge. I have been able to go out there, and we were told just how huge it is, and we did get to drive around. I don't know if it was all 19,000, but it was a long drive.
It takes a while to get around it.
Yes.
And, it's been so special to our community over the years, and certainly when it was established, and it is so important to the world right now.
Yes.
I read last night that I think the statistics were we make 8,000 of the Stinger missiles, or one of the missiles that they're using in Ukraine, good, bad, or indifferent, but they're using what we can produce in 2 months or a month in 2 days.
Yeah,
So-
what's being used in Ukraine is being made here.
Right. And presently the community is going to get a big boost presently with about a $1.5 billion upgrade.
Higher.
It's more than 1.5.
Yeah.
So if you take that all the way back to 1940, there was Scott, why don't you share that?
Well, I didn't really know any of this, but again, kind of looking through some of the family history here. My grandfather, right before World War II, found out that the Army wanted to build a big ordnance plant, that would employ a ton of people. And
He would have been about 14, 15 years into the practice.
yes, yeah. So this was in the late 30s. And my grandmother, Glenn's wife, Nell, my grandmother, somehow from Kansas, she was from Kansas, and she knew General Fleming, who was the head of Army Ordnance. They had nearby farms in Kansas. Mm-hmm. And so she introduced my grandfather, and they made a trip down there basically, and I guess long story short, made kind of a little sales pitch to locate the plant up here, and got the job done.
Wow, no kidding.
General Fleming was the head of the Army Ordnance procurement.
Yeah.
And that is the story how the IAAP ended up here.
No kidding.
And at one time, I think during construction, they had, it says here, 18,000 construction workers in a community that had about 32,000 people.
Yeah.
And so I'm proud of that.
Oh, of course.
And I actually tried to find some material, and I found some now declassified information and reports about the firm reporting to, I believe it was the Department of Justice. The Cray Law Firm was one of two firms hired by as your dad would say, the War Department, to participate in the acquisition of that property out there. 206 sales, all were negotiated. A majority of them were negotiated in 2 weeks.
Wow. I had no idea about that.
I didn't either.
Talk about
my
legacy.
grandfather never mentioned that to me, but his oldest son, Glenn Jr., my uncle, kept some pretty good family records.
Very good.
I'm glad to have a copy of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're trying to do that with our family, trying to get family roots and get that ancestry down. And it's when you find things out, it's incredibly fascinating, things that you didn't know about before.
Yeah, it's I call it Crayology, and I'm just delighted to have a chance to be part of it, and I delighted to help bring some of this to light. We're just ecstatic about being around for 100 years and want to make a decent deal of it.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, we are just about out of time, and it has flown by, and I've learned so much, and I'm sure the listeners have learned a tremendous amount, and I really appreciate that. If folks want to learn more about Cray Law and they want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
So, of course, the firm has a website, Cray Law Firm. You Google Cray, I'm told we're the number one on the paid platform. So Google us, and you can get everything you would expect right there.
Excellent. And Monday to Friday hours and occasional Saturdays?
Yeah, I mean we only work half days, though. It's important that you know that. We choose which half we want to work, noon to midnight or midnight to noon.
Okay.
But yeah, we're typically there. The phones ring 8:30 to 5, and appointments on the weekends, of course.
You've streamlined it.
Yeah, we've used this very unique hourly use of 8:30 to 5.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, Mitch Taylor, Scott Cray, it's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much again. Congratulations on 100 years, and we wish you continued success. And here's to the next 100.
All right.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast. Give us a call at the Greater Burlington Partnership and let us know of any future guests that you would like to hear. Until then, take care, and we'll see you on All Things Greater Burlington.
You have been listening to All Things Greater Burlington with Stephen Brody. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to catch all new episodes. To learn more about all things Greater Burlington, visit greaterburlington.com/ATGB.